playing AC Brotherhood, it reminded me of how big Ubisoft was at the time as a company. Heck, they've been around since the 90s, growing into this colossal company in the same story that Activision Electronic Arts led, and it sent them to making a quite odd partnership with Sony for the PS3 version of Brotherhood when it was released. I say it's weird since Ubisoft must have doubled back on that when the generation crossed, since AC Origins is currently being advertised with the Expo. Anyway, if you purchase the PS3 version of this game, you are in for quite a bit of a treat. A line of free DLC missions called the Copernicus Conspiracy. That is some free content available only for the PS3 version of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. Hell, they didn't even put it on the Xbox Marketplace 6 years after the fact for the extra money. Sony must have given out quite a nice bit of change to get Ubisoft to manage that. But even with that preference available for the PS3 version, you are essentially getting the same experience with any platform for this game. Probably not PC, because, you know, Ubisoft. The Copernicus Conspiracy isn't exactly an in-depth quest line. You still get the same Ezio, the same stabbing, and the same beautiful Italia. Of course, Assassin's Creed 2 left Ubisoft in quite an odd spot to spin its sequel. Ezio has grown into the Master Assassin, defeated Pope Alexander VI without killing him, because he's an idiot, and thinking he can return to Monteriggioni with the thought that nothing major will continue to happen in this country. So what does Ubisoft pull? The patented Metroidvania-style aggravating trope of ability loss, with Monteriggioni getting obliterated. Ezio loses most of his equipment and goes on a secondary revenge quest to get even with the people who killed his Uncle Mario. While we're playing this game, I thought the obvious happened in the intro. Ezio failed to kill Rodrigo in the most boneheaded move pulled in a video game, and for literally no logical reason, and therefore Rodrigo blew up his house. Later in the game, in true toss-aside line fashion, it turned out that the timing of Rodrigo's defeat and the invasion of Monteriggioni was a giant coincidence! Rodrigo didn't order Cesare to blow up Monteriggioni, he just happened to be doing that at the time. So what's the next logical step for Captain Numbskull after he loses all of his friends, stuff, and takes a couple concussions and bullets to the torso? Rebuilding his gang of murderers back in Rome proper. It's kind of this game's thing, with that subtitle and all, and it's a great way to extend Ezio's character arc from the best assassin to becoming the proper leader of the Assassin Order and carving their way through Rome's power structure. Quite literally too, since Ubisoft thought that the one takeaway everyone had from Assassin's Creed 2 was its town development mechanic that's been extended to the entire city! Yes, if you want, you can pointlessly purchase the entire Colosseum for 30,000 florins. I say it's pointless since purchasing landmarks oddly generates less revenue than purchasing businesses. Plus, the businesses actually do things, like selling garbage only useful to Ezio Auditore da Firenze. Did no one else seriously want a legitimate treasure map? Nobody. People are dumb. Well, whatever, the Borgia can't send goons at you anymore if you literally own the entire city. You aren't going to want to do that, but after getting a couple extra blacksmiths around does help. The usual problem comes up through this mechanic that doesn't go anywhere, and by the end of the game, you're literally flooding the Roman streets with useless gold coins. And even with that green thumb in this game, I love how the series is turning, since one thing about Assassin's Creed 2 was that day-to-day activities were such a slog. That was a game that had 5 sandbox cities in it, which meant a lot of fast travel and horse-ass observation. Commutes stacked on top of commutes, and with Rome being the only city in Brotherhood and being a more tightly designed game, makes the boring part short and gives you stuff to do in between story missions. This isn't Skyrim, so don't expect the lavish side quests, but there's at least some decent effort, and for the love of God, I recommend getting the Da Vinci DLC for this game, because that has the interesting side quests thrown out onto the map. Without that, you basically have the Caterina nonsense and a bunch of cookie cutter bullshit where Ubisoft just decided to label 3 regular soldiers as important, and that was about it. And since we're talking about improvements, can I just get a quest log in the future games so I can pop in and out of side quests at my leisure instead of taking all these ridiculous detours? Sheesh. Another distraction I welcomed was the ultimately fruitless addition of Brotherhood's defining mechanic, assassin training. Early on in the game, you get introduced to random NPCs, mostly men, who end up fighting with the city guard, and if you save them from that, a la the citizen saving quest from Assassin's Creed, then you recruit them as your murder students, and then can send them on foreign assassination contracts to build their skills. If you succeed hard and have none of them die on you when they're called on to fight alongside you in Rome, then they'll eventually level up and be full-fledged assassins, giving you a cutscene of their initiation celebration. That is pretty fun, but the entire process isn't controlled entirely via a menu, so it ends up like Ubisoft is trying to excite you about the numbers that they typed up in an Excel spreadsheet. You never actually see these guys actually do anything in the game as, individual characters, and the game just tells you that they're badass. Hell, even when they're summoned in-field, you don't interact or see their faces. I like the addition since it gives you an incredibly useful murder tool with 100% effectiveness, and the contract menu is easy to navigate and operate with. It's the bare minimum of quote-unquote management, and that suits me perfectly fine. It's just that it's one of those things that has untapped potential, and could have been the orc recruitment mechanic from Shadow of Mordor a whole 4 years ahead of schedule. Apparently, Ubisoft thought the same thing of Assassin's Creed 2, since most of Brotherhood's main story feels like AC2 leftovers. Ezio's back for another quest along with all the characters from that game. Machiavelli returns and is painted into a possible traitor due to which the ease Monteriggioni was blown apart despite the villa being equipped with cannons. La Volpe is doing his thing, Claudia has taken up the reins of the brothel girls, and even that guy with the sword wife is back to the mercenary the crap out of the French. The issue with that is that since this game doesn't develop the characters and they don't get much screen time or even teach Ezio a damn thing, it feels like the story is using Assassin's Creed 2 as a crutch instead of doing its own thing, basically giving us an Assassin's Creed 2.5. I'm down with that. Assassin's Creed 2 is good and more of it isn't bad. But it feels like Ubisoft took the low road on this one. And on that road is the shoestring plot that Ubisoft picked up hitchhiking on the interstate. The basic plot is that Monteriggioni was destroyed and Ezio is plotting vengeance on Cesare Borgia, who led the assault. There's the usual political discord coming about with the Borgia trying to wrest control of Italia and Rome to the Templars. I suppose the plot feels that usual strains of Sandbox disjointed because even the story missions themselves only vaguely connect to the overall plan. There are points in the game where Ezio is actively discussing the revenge plan, but I couldn't care less. It's not something that I had to prep for and put a plan together. Ezio just handed it to the player and his allies on a silver platter, and all there is to do is get it done, and that's not immersive. You want to feel like you are getting this thing done start to finish, and when you're the player character is getting the steps done for you, that's a problem. Otherwise, Ezio's operation in Rome itself just gets threatened by random soldiers and gangs that mostly relate to the faction's personal beefs with the Templar sympathizers. I'll give AC2 some credit and say that Rodrigo being at the important cutscenes did matter, since the missions were all being connected to the main goal rather than Brotherhood feeling like such a sprawling mess. Also, I'll give Brotherhood a pat on the back. The story quests they put together are fun. They have the effort in writing and putting together involving gameplay, but with a story, all the parts have to be connected, otherwise the climax comes out of left field, and this is where we get to the bit where Cesare truly shines. After the failure for Cesare and the Templars to secure the help of the French to aid in their cause, Rodrigo cuts off Cesare's funding completely, leaving him the rebel without a cause. It was a royal shame to see Cesare's better cutscenes at the end of the game, since it left so much potential to give us a villain that we could really hate. And that's what these big games usually miss: character development of the villain. It's equally as important to the development of the protagonist, no more and no less. And Cesare's overdramatic, insane performance where he's losing everything, tries to consolidate his military several times in the final act, only to then be arrested for life, was priceless. Hell, he was the one who killed Rodrigo with an apple. Yeah, a regular apple. That was a hell of a funny cutscene. What was less of a thrill was to realize that with the tighter sandbox, commute cutting all the time in the world to shoot soldiers in the face meant that the game was going to come out incredibly short. Assassin's Creed 2 was a long-developed, overwhelming experience clocking in at a base 12 chapters. Brotherhood clocks in at 9, and one of those chapters is the final battle, bookended by 2 generic sword fights. Those chapters are all fun experiences, but the ending just flew by, literally. Those sword fights were fast-forwarded for around 9 months to show that Ezio did indeed have a plan to take them apart piece by piece. It's probably going to be the big issue with the games in this series when Ubisoft decide to do the whole annual releasing thing, but it needs to be said that when the parcels of game end up on the cutting room floor, it's time to put down the scissors. Otherwise, it's a solid AC sandbox experience with some of the typical nonsense cut from the expanded fast travel and smaller sandbox to add in unique nonsense such as the fruitless town management mechanics and assassination training. It's strange to say that part of the game is pointless, since the entire point of this game was to build the Assassin's HQ in Rome by murdering all of the other tenants. Getting around the city is fluid, the gadgets are getting more powerful, making it easier to cut your way through the stupid combat. The stealth in this game is also pretty fucked in the head, since enemies seem to be able to turn on a dime between disinterested and blood rage, giving you zero margin of error when you aim for those synchronization completion, which in of itself is bullshit. All they do is unlock stupid cosmetic hacks for the Animus, such as turning all the assassins or Templar soldiers female, like that's going to do anything. And speaking of stupid, the Desmond bullcrap in the framing device is ramping up in the most moronic way possible. It's like you're watching one of those book adaptations where the writer hides all the entire exposition of the story behind question dodging, only to dump it all in your head like a goddamn comet of garbage. What pisses me off most is that the framing device is constantly talking. Hell, the god people in the temple are actually screaming at Desmond, and it means nothing. Bottom line null is this bullshit exposition where they're just yakking on and on and on about meaningless drivel. None of it makes any sense. It's not grounded in even the game's own reality, and when the love interest gets stabbed in the end via divine intervention, we won't know why that happened until the bloody next episode. TV shows and movies do this stupid nonsense all the time, trying to entice you to the next part, where all it does is make the thing you're currently watching look shitty because the producers are holding out for the extra coin, only to then botch the reveal completely and make you feel the fool for waiting so long. Sean is still the only interesting character in the framing device party bus, and he's never going to be plot important, so what's the point of the whole thing? After it was directly shown that normal humans can survive this solar apocalypse coming later in the series via unexplained methods, why are we still bothering with this prophecy when leftover Minerva messages can just give Desmond the secret instead of all this hoop jumping? I'm sorry I'm yammering on right at the end of the video, but in all honesty, the only thing that happened in the Desmond parts of this game was the future party bus relocated to Monteriggioni looking for clues on the temple and finding one with the Apple of Eden in it. The apple forced Desmond to kill girl character number 1 for unclear reasons, and the true side quest in this game only foreshadows the game's ending. No one had anything to say, and all they want to do is wait until a later title in the series. That's what the writers want to do since they have no faith in their own story, so the characters have to be stupid. What a swizz. Beyond that nonsense, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood is a great follow-up to 2, and in spite of carrying over a ton of that game's stories and characters, they're still the same old gang having new, interesting adventures across an exploration-fueled Rome in order to finally defeat the Borgia family once and for all, and establish the next generation of assassins to fight in the dark for the light. Ezio becomes Assassin Master like Al-Mualim, and we get to enjoy the continuation of Captain Numbskull's character arc as it drives through the hearts of all the people he doesn't like. I would recommend getting the PS3 version for the exclusive content, but then again, the odd thing about this game was that it was marketed for Sony's camp when the 360 version is better optimized. I hit a lot of frame chugging on this venture and even some short game freezes, so yeah, good try with getting that on your console, Sony. Maybe that's why Ubisoft was persuaded back to the Microsoft side of thinking. Go out, get the game for cheap, and have some fun is today's message. along with a well-deserved victory for gamers. Thanks for watching!